Hello, so today is potato planting day today. Now then, it's the beginning of March and in protected conditions we can crack on with getting our seed potatoes planted. And I'll tell you what I've done, because don't forget I am in Plymouth. It is milder than the rest of the country, so I can get away with a little bit more than everybody else. But I do like to push the boundaries of growing early potatoes quite a bit, because I want the earliest possible yield. Even if it's a reduced yield, I do love new potatoes, especially when they're small. So I'll do everything I possibly can. Now this is well on. This is a variety called Maris Bard with a snail on. I'll get rid of the snail in a minute. It was planted on the 22nd of January. It's put indoors in a warm room, or not really warm room, but a warm room compared with outdoors. As soon as the potatoes came up and they broke the surface, like this one, they were then put onto a sunny windowsill. And today we're going to pot them up into these water buckets here, 10-inch water buckets, one potato. Then they will be kept inside the greenhouse, because I have a frost-free greenhouse, again because of where I am in the country. But you should be able to have the same with luck. You know, at the moment, if I just show you the actual greenhouse here, it's all insulated with bubble wrap. Nice big hole there. Bit ripped out. Oh, I'll have to repair that one. So it's a matter of doing the best you can with what you've got, trying to take advantage of the conditions that you can provide. Now then, so let's go back to the start. You should be able to get early potatoes kept in a greenhouse by the end of May, and I'll show you how. Now I like to start them off in these little pots, because they're much more manageable in that state. They can be brought indoors and the wife won't complain too much, whereas if you try and bring that indoors, she ain't gonna like that. So it's just not advisable. Now then, I'll go through what I do at this go, but this is ordinary compost, nothing special, cheapest I could buy. Well, actually, it was last year's compost that I'm using up. Just put a couple of centimetres in the bottom like that, nothing special. Seed potato in the bottom, and then just cover up. It is simple as that. There's no need to firm down. There's no need to water it at this stage. A little bit of damp watering if it's dry, but this is dampish. You don't actually need to water them until they break the surface. When they broke the surface, then you should start watering them. You'll see that in the bottom of this one, the roots are just showing through. During those early phases, they're actually trying to seek water and moisture, so it will do no harm. Don't forget, you've got the seed potato as the reserve for all its needs until the roots get out. Right, so there we are. That's that one there. I shall label it and put it indoors. Now then, when they break through the surface, that goes on the windowsill for a couple of weeks until they get to this stage here, which is ready now to go into the main pot. If I just take this out a minute, like that, you see the roots themselves are absolutely superb. They're in lovely condition. Look, absolutely perfect, just perfect for potting on. So how do we do this? Now then, being a cheapskate like I am, I use a water bucket that I've got from Asda, from the fresh flowers department. They let me have for free. I'll take that. Now then, in the bottom of here is my own compost, my own homemade compost, from last year in the bottom, about 2 inches to the very bottom, and then a little bit up the sides. And all it is just a matter of popping this one out, popping that one in. I do like to provide just a small amount of this compost, just in case there's just to prevent a shock going through to the root system. You know, my own compost is pretty good and full of nutrients. I don't really want that to come directly in contact with it as a first contact, because it will shock the roots. Now then, there should be enough of my really good compost in there right now to power the needs of that potato right the way through. There's no need for fertilizer, there's no need for anything else, just that whatsoever. Now then, obviously if you left it like that, that would be no good. Now then, in here is all the removals of in this greenhouse so far this year. Like for instance, I do sieve the compost, not generally so, but for the fussy crops I do sieve the compost, and I put the rough stuff in here. I also, when you finished a crop of seedlings, instead of wasting this compost, it all just goes in a bucket so that it's not wasted, and then this can go as a top up right up the top. Any seedlings can go back in there. A little bit more. And that's it. It really is simple as that. Because the root ball is nice and moist, I'm not in no hurry to water that at the moment. That will be just kept under the bench in the greenhouse, not somewhere dark, but somewhere out of the way. All my potting benches are used with seedlings at the moment, so this will go out of the way somewhere. So basically, in the small amount of heat I give this greenhouse, it's about maximising the yield within the greenhouse. And this sits under the bench. The plants will not look particularly great, they'll get quite straggly, but they'll produce a very early crop. Perfect. Okay, so just a general view of my overcrowded greenhouse, just so that you can have a bit of perspective. There's the plants, potatoes that I've just potted up, shoved against the potting bench, marginally in the sun. They'll get enough sun there to produce a crop, give me a nice few potatoes. It squeezes up my runway, my walkway a little bit, but so be it. On the other side of the greenhouse, there's pots that are partially started with my own compost, and they'll be used for these potatoes, which aren't quite ready yet. They're coming on, but they're not taking up, and the least space I can occupy, the better for a little while. Now then, in my area of the country, we have the lovely opportunity of having very good amount of time frost free, and as long as the last frosts remain early, we stand a chance of getting our potatoes out earlier than the rest of the country. But the downside is blight will start in our part of the country a lot earlier than the rest of the country. So I like to get my main crop potatoes started now. It's miles too early for the rest of you, but there's a direct correlation between the last frost and the first blight, depending on weather, of course. Blight needs 24 hours of high humidity above and temperatures above 10 degrees centigrade. So if those conditions occur in May or June, blight is a risk. Now, if you get blight in May or June and if you've gone by the traditional planting timescales, there's no point. You're just not going to grow potatoes. Last year we had the last frost the 18th of April, and the first blight was the 26th of June. It's just not enough time to grow potatoes. Now then, I am growing disease-resistant potatoes such as Carolus and Satanta, which are both blight-resistant. But I also love this lovely potato, which is Maris Piper. Brilliant chipping potatoes, roasted potatoes, jacket potatoes, and there isn't many that can beat it. The traditional Sarple Mirror variety that's blight free just isn't good enough for that type of use. So if you want to grow Maris Piper, then you have to modify your planting times. Again, because I've got this frost-free greenhouse, I can give them that early start. And these potatoes will be started off in here. They'll be then potted up in April time into their main pots. And I'll show you that process, because they end up in 30 litre pots, and they'll go out in the tunnel, a frost resistant shall I say, tunnel, which is not kept heated, but I will put the fleece down to protect the haulms if we do get a late frost. But these potatoes will be totally out and taking the risk. But if we don't get that very, very late frost, I can get the jump on the rest of the season and get a crop of potatoes before blight hits. So again, the method is very simple. A small pot, seed potato into the bottom, on top of a small amount of compost in the pot, and literally just away you go. Same routine as before, absolutely no need to water. There we are, done. And I'll carry on going through this particular crop until we're finished. Oh, there's the phone. Oh, I got the phone. No. I don't know. So as I said before, it's just a seed potato in the bottom there, and then literally just cover it over with compost. There's nothing more difficult than that. And these will be kept indoors in the greenhouse under the shelving here, because they don't need light. Kept frost free until they all appear, and then we pot them up when they're above this stage here. Just as a little note, I've run out of compost, so I've had to go out and get some of this stuff. This year I'm trying to go peat free, but the economics of it are quite, not frightening, that's the wrong word, but it's quite surprising how expensive it is. £5 for 50 litre bag, and looking across, the normal peat compost from the same company is half of that. So don't treat it too lightly. The actual compost itself is nowhere near as good as I would expect, but it's £5 a bag. You know, it's not too bad. If I compared it to the compost that I used earlier on, this is Silver Grow peat free, and it's beautiful stuff. You know, it really is lovely and texturous, but it's £9 a bag. I can't afford to use that on potatoes. That's just the spare stuff that I was wasted from the seed trays. So be careful with the economics of doing this, because it is all about how much you produce, how much it costs, and how much you can buy it in the shop for. Bear in mind that everything I grow is all organic, and yours can be as well. There we are.